You joined Trump's presidential campaign as a press aide in 2015, right?
Correct.
And then you became part of the transition team.
Yeah, kind of. Yes.
What do you mean, kind of?
Well, it's funny. It's so funny because I was named as part of the transition team, but I actually never had a formal transition role, and I was still on the payroll of the campaign. But either way, this is right to most people. I was there from his being elected until he took office. So yes, I was there.
Right. Then in 2017, you did arrive in Washington and you served as a deputy to Sean Spicer, right?
Yes.
How did that go?
It's fine. I was grateful. My lifelong dream had been to be White House press secretary, and at that time, which I do talk about in the book, a lot of RNC people were coming in, and a lot of us Trump people were very wary of them. And so for an RNC person to offer me one of the 3 deputy press sec jobs was an honor, and so I was happy to take it. Once I got in there, they kept me in the same role that I had as the campaign, which was just stay with the press and be able to push him out of the room when he wanted. So I didn't get to actually do deputy press secretary roles. At that point, I didn't mind. President Trump loved me. Sean was happy with me. I had a title I liked, and I was just hoping I would grow from there.
It was a couple of months, and you started serving as communications director and serving Melania directly, correct?
Yes.
Were you happy about that?
I was, because I did feel at the time that I wasn't being utilized for my communications expertise. I'm giving me that own title. Other people could argue it. I wasn't doing interviews. I wasn't interacting with the press other than to kick them out of a room. And so when Melania Trump recognized that I could have a talent there and she called me in to meet me, which I was not expecting, I was really excited. And after my first meeting with her, she was so down to earth. She was so kind. She kept asking me if I wanted water, coffee, is the temperature in the room okay? She, like her husband, they're the ultimate hosts. And when she started to talk to me about her thoughts for children, I got very excited about that. So I was happy about that. And I had not met her before. I had seen her a couple of times, and she was just this, oh my gosh, beautiful woman, which she also was in my very surprise interview. But she was so down to earth and kind. So I was really looking forward to moving somewhere that I thought maybe I could grow and be appreciated.
So you worked with her pretty closely beginning then, right?
Yeah, I mean, as with every Trump, it takes a little time to get close to them. But I mean, of course, I was her comms person, so we spoke every day right from the start. And I became closer and closer to her, obviously, with every day that passed.
Yeah. Now, I guess it was, a year into that you got into the first, maybe it was the first, but it was certainly high profile that you got into having to do damage control on her BBEST program.
Yeah.
Because they said that a lot of it had been plagiarized from the Obama program. Was that the first major crisis you had to deal with her, or was there something before that?
So I'm going to apologize in advance because to me, I know it wasn't long ago, but everything seems like it was 150 years ago. In Trump world, so much happens that I think that was actually our first as an office crisis. I do. And it was a misunderstanding, and the people that we were using their pamphlets for, which was a government entity, had said, just use these, go ahead. We had no idea that the Obama administration had used them, so perhaps that was our office's fault on not looking at that, but the message was still good, and we never purported that we wrote the pamphlets that we were pushing out. We had just hired a policy person. That was tough, and I hated that for her, because that was not her fault. And here we go, because she had already been accused of plagiarism, as you know, with the first...
right, from the speech.
Right. Uh-huh. And that wasn't her. And that was our office truly just trying to put some good information out. But I think you're right that was our first professional scandal. I've had so many personal ones with her that it's hard to kind of keep track. But yeah.
How did she handle that? Did she take those things personal?
Yeah. I think rightfully so. I mean, she was upset. Here, her staff comes to her and says, look at this booklet. We're going to pass this out. It's got your message. This will be great. And as a principal, she trusted her staff, which I think that's a good thing. And so she was very upset, and rightfully so. And we were all upset. Like, how did this happen? And, we got permission. I forget what government entity gave it to us. I'm not going to speculate, and they even came out and said, yeah, we gave this to them. They didn't write it. They never said they wrote it. But at that point, it left the building. She was upset, and she was rightfully upset.
Yeah, so just a bad spin on her.
Everything was a bad spin on her. I remember when we first took office, everyone was just confident we were going to rip out the White House garden. And I kept saying to people, like, what do you think she's going to do? Put in a golden statue? Like, stop. She's keeping the vegetable garden. And so finally, we were like, let's do an event to show that we're going to keep this garden and that what Michelle Obama started was a good thing. So we invited some children from the Boys and Girls Club. They came and we did a great event. She helped some children garden. And all the stories that came out the next day were that her shoes were too white and clean and that her shirt was like a $4,000 shirt. And at that point, look, there's no love lost between us now, but that was patently unfair. She kept the garden. She invited children. She promoted the garden. And all people cared about was her white shoes and her really expensive flannel shirt. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you had to feel at that point like we can't win.
To this day, I feel that way. I mean, I was so angry that day. Yeah, you can't win. And I don't know that Melania Trump could win. I don't. She had a real uphill climb.
Eventually, I guess it was middle of 19, you did become the press secretary.
Yes.
How did she feel about that? Because you guys had worked together closely, and okay, now you're moving over to that position. Was she supportive?
Oh, yes. In fact, I've got text that would prove this, but yes, she and I talked about it, and I told her, I will stay with you. I will stay with you if you think that's what's best. She had always been very good to me. And, she knew my dream had always to be White House press secretary. I think where I messed up was my dream was not to be the Trump White House press secretary. I know that now. But she and I agreed that I could take the job, but still work for her. And we thought that would actually show a nice synergy between the East and West wings, which so far everybody had thought we were so against each other. And so I took the job with the agreement with the president that Mrs. Trump and I would still work together. I would still be her spokesperson and her comms director. And that is the only reason I took the job.
Yeah. Did it work out?
No.
Yeah.
Look, I took the job thinking that I would be different because I would have Melania Trump on my side, and that when some kind of crazy things come up, I'd be able to call her and then she could call him and put a stop to it, which she did. I'll give her credit. She did. No, it didn't work out. At the end of the day, he didn't want me to take the podium. At that point, he felt he was his own best spokesperson. Fine by me. I didn't know that I wanted to take the podium in the Trump White House. But it didn't work out. No.
Why did you not want to take the podium?
I did not want to be put in the position to be dishonest to the American public. And I want to be clear that that's not an indictment on Sarah or Sean. But at that point, we had COVID going. The president was saying things at the podium that weren't helpful. We had Fauci and Burke saying certain things. We had the first impeachment going on. And this is going to sound, I hate saying this because it sounds cheesy, but I, my whole life, revered the press secretary and that podium. And so the thought of going out there and ever lying to the American people and getting caught that would have meant a lot to me.
Do you think you would have been asked to go out there and lie? And were you ever asked to?
Well, before I took the job, it was agreed I wouldn't take the podium. He had already stopped it. He had already stopped Sarah from taking the podium 6 months prior to me. So she had stopped. We agreed I would not take the podium. Now, I will say, which I write about in my book, he asked me to go out at one point and read the transcripts between himself and Zelensky. And he wanted me to, like, reenact it on the podium with 2 different voices, which, number one, if you know me, I can't do an accent for my life. So that would have been a disaster in and of itself. But no, I mean, I'm not going to go out there and reenact a conversation. That was the only time he asked me to take the podium.
So he wanted you to role play the 2 parts.
Yeah. I would have been on SNL for sure.
So that wasn't a good idea.
No,
All right.
It's a terrible idea for anybody. I don't care who it was.
I don't think you ever held a briefing, correct?
Mm-mm. But again, that was our agreement when I started. You have to remember, like, I get a lot of grief because people say I wasted taxpayers' money because I never held a briefing. Couple things there. The press secretary doesn't just hold briefings. She oversees a huge staff, or she or he, of people. So that's not fair. But when I took the job as press secretary under Trump, I took the press secretary job, the director of communications job, and I was Mrs. Trump's press secretary. So I had 3 full-time jobs at once. And so part of that agreement was that briefings would not be an issue for me because he felt, I talked to him 2-3 times a day, Stephanie, you don't need to do it. I do better.
Yeah.